Right. Well, good afternoon and welcome back to the Weight Escape, our virtual summit on escaping those things that tend to weigh us down. And what I'm really excited about today is we actually have a speaker that is going to talk to us a little bit about things in life that weigh us down. So this actually, while it pertains to the physical, is a little bit more about our environment, which I'm super excited. I actually had the chance to hear Rose speak about a month ago, I think, in the Canadian Women in Medicine conference that I was actually invited to watch a couple sessions with somebody that I know. And she just, I don't know what was going on that day, but I needed to be there. I needed to hear the talk. And afterwards, I was like, I need to reach out and have her on this summit. So I am super, super excited that she said yes. She doesn't know totally. I've told her a little bit, but it's changed a lot of how I function on a day-to-day basis. And I can tell you my stress level just from some of her things that I got from her that day and a Facebook Live she's done since has just been slowly dropping and slowly dropping and slowly dropping. And I can see how what she has to say today would actually really talk to those of us that do struggle with the physical weight, because we know it's so much more than just what we carry on a physical level. So this is Rose. She's from Dayton, Ohio, a keynote speaker, a best-selling author, I believe, a simplicity coach. And I can't wait to hear what she has to say to us today. So Rose, sorry if I missed anything about you, I apologize. You can make up for anything.
You've got all the important things. So thank you. And I'm encouraged to hear that my talk at the Canadian Women in Medicine changed some things in your household. That's what it's all about. That's awesome.
Sure. Awesome. So I'd love for you, I mean, I know when I listened to you speak, I was compelled so quickly by your personal story. And I think the fact that you've lived it and done it and why you did it was what really grabbed me. And I think it's what made it relatable to my life. So I'd love if you just share a little bit about kind of how you got started, what it is that you do. Feel like I kind of left everybody hanging there a second, but tell us a little bit about that. And yeah.
Sure. So I'll tell you my personal background and how I got into this work of being a simplicity coach and a speaker who talks about simplicity. So my personal story with this, and I got into all of this on a very personal level. It starts about 8 years ago when I was working a full-time job outside the home as a middle school teacher. So I taught English language arts for seventh graders. And so I would do my job all day, teaching my middle school students. And then I would come home, and anyone who's ever been a working parent understands this. You come home and it's like you're clocking in at a second job, right? The unpaid job of being a parent. And my kids are triplets. And at the time they were 2 years old. So I was teaching middle school and then coming home to 2-year-old triplets. So two really challenging jobs back to back every single day. And so I came home and I did the mom job of, playtime and dinner time and bath time. And then when I finally got them in bed at night, all I wanted to do was sit down and just have an hour to myself to relax. But I found that what I was doing instead was just dealing with my stuff, picking up toys and shoes and sippy cups and moving piles of paper around because I didn't know what else to do with it. And it was exhausting and it was never ending. And what I found was I never had that time at the end of the day just for me, that time just to relax. Instead of serving my students or serving my kids, I needed time to serve myself. But during the little window that I had, I was serving my stuff. And so I thought, okay, this is not right. This is not how I want to live my life, but I didn't know what else to do about this. I really thought the answer to my problem was to buy a bigger house. I live in a 1,500 square foot house, which by most Western standards is relatively small. And so I thought, well, I just need to buy a bigger house and then we'll have more space, right? And then I won't have to deal with my stuff anymore. And so I was kind of going along that thought process when I had lunch with a really good friend of mine. And it was right after Christmas time. We had just come back from visiting all the out-of-state family, and the kids had been given so many gifts. I mean, they're 2-year-old triplets visiting out-of-state relatives, and they were just loaded down with presents. And when we walked into the house, I just immediately felt so overwhelmed because I looked around and I realized that we didn't have room for the things we already owned. And I had no idea where I was going to put the new stuff. So these gifts that were intended to bless me, and they are given in love, but they felt like a burden. And I knew that that wasn't right. So I was talking to my friend at lunch about this. I said, I think we've got too much stuff and we just need to buy a bigger house. I don't know what else to do. My friend said, you could do that, or you could become a minimalist. And I had no idea what that term really meant. I imagined people living in caves with nothing, just, one robe and you have nothing else. And she said, no, it's actually just a philosophy, a way of living where you have less stuff and less stress and more time for yourself. So I thought, okay, that sounds great to me. So I went home and I started reading books and blogs about minimalism. And 8 years ago, there were really a lot of books and blogs out there on this topic. Now there are quite a few, but I started reading the ones that were available, and I was just absolutely hooked on this idea, because it had never occurred to me, instead of buying a bigger house or buying more storage containers or labeling more things or organizing and reorganizing, which is what I was doing every night for an hour or two before dropping into bed dead tired. Really, you could just let go of the things that you no longer use, the things that didn't serve you. It was this huge aha for me that it was as simple as that. It was as simple as just letting go of the things we didn't need. And so I went on this journey of starting to do this. And I started just letting go of things in my house. And it took me about 8 months to sort of go through the house, and I'm working full time and I have 3 toddlers. So I don't have copious amounts of free time here. So it took about 8 months total to touch most of the areas in the house. And it was just this radical transformation. Physically, it was a transformation. People would come over and they would look around and they would ask us, whoa, are you guys preparing to move? What's going on in here? And I'd say, no, we're not moving. We just got rid of all the stuff we didn't need. And this is what it looks like now. So physically, there was this transformation. But what was most important to me was the emotional transformation that I felt. Like you had mentioned earlier, Jen, how your stress level has decreased as you've started doing this. That was what I really noticed, is suddenly at the end of the day, I can relax. I don't feel like I'm battling my house every single day. I don't feel nervous and anxious when people come over. I don't feel like I have to apologize for the mess when people walk in the door. If someone's going to visit, I don't have to spend 4 hours cleaning up so that it's okay for people to come into my home. It was just this huge sense of freedom that I suddenly had. And I was so excited about that I wanted to share it with other people. So I started my own blog about minimalism, just sharing what I was doing with other people. And then eventually, after a few years of doing that, I started a business coaching people, helping them do the same thing that I had done. And so now that's what I do. I help people online. I have group programs. I have personal coaching online. And I obviously have keynote speaking, which you got to see me do, where I can spread the message to people at conferences and speaking events. So that's how I got to where I am today. And also along the way, I wrote a book and I did a TEDx talk as well. So those things are out there if people are interested in looking those up. But all of it started for me from a very personal place of just realizing I want to change the narrative for my life. I don't want to feel stressed out in my house all the time. And for me, the answer was letting go of the excess things. And then everything changed. So many things changed as a result of that.
I love that. I love that. It just makes me think as a nutrition and physical coach, it's like you don't want to feel stressed in your own house. And I think a lot of our listeners and the people that I work with feel stressed in their own bodies. But then it's like your body is in your house, and it just kind of compounds and compounds. And I think that feeling of overwhelm, and I know for us as women, and I know for men too, but it's like that's what kind of starts to get heavy, and that's where things start to feel like, well, how do you get started and what do you do? And it's just it's all there, right? And it's just like, okay, well, maybe it's just easier to do nothing than to actually do something about it, because there's just, like you say, there's so much stuff, whether it's emotion, whether it's food, whether it's I need to exercise but I also have to do laundry and I've got little kids at home. Like how do you make those choices? I think and you speak directly to what almost everybody faces. And I know you and I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I'm a triathlete and was supposed to be doing my first full Ironman this summer, which unfortunately is not happening. But I've found I used to do that battle of me time, laundry or housework or training. And I always felt like it was like I could get one or two, but I could never get that third thing done. And over the last month or so, it's like, how did I have time to do that? Like, well, hold on a second. How did that work? Like what? And it was like literally, like you said, going back and looking at some of the pieces that you had given. I think I downloaded something from your website too, but it's just like, okay, I don't have to figure it all out today. I can do, pieces like that and it's just like, okay, if I don't get to this, it's actually okay. It's been sitting there for 3 months anyway. What's another, week? And so instead of moving stuff from empty spot to empty spot, it's things are getting dealt with. And it's very freeing.
Yeah, that is so true. I think for so many life changes, whether you want to make a change in your home or you want to make a change in your body or both, we can procrastinate by going into that state of overwhelm, right? By looking at all the things and being like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do, I can't get started. But really that's a way of stopping ourselves from getting started, right? Because really you just start somewhere and there's no real right or wrong place to start. You just choose a place to begin and you begin. And I sometimes think when you think of all the time, often when it comes to physical stuff that you've spent worrying about it, how many times have you walked by that pile of stuff and like, ugh, I got to do something about it. Ugh, I got to do something about it. Then even maybe when you're not looking at it, it pops into your head and you think you got to do something about it. How much time we have spent agonizing about it and stressing about it, when if we would just start and spend 2 minutes or 3 minutes dealing with it a little bit, right? We're actually moving it forward. So I know for me, for a long time, it was the overwhelm of trying to do all of it. I looked at the whole house as a big thing instead of, okay, one little piece, one little step, and you can do that, right? Even if you've got 10 minutes, and then maybe tomorrow or the next day or 2 days from now, you do the next step. And that's how you make life changes. No one is ever going to give us that uninterrupted 5-hour block of time that we want. It just does not show up. So when I think of how I did this in my life, I was finding the little moments here and there where I could make a difference and where I could move it forward. If I had waited for the time where I would have uninterrupted, 8 hours or a whole weekend to work on it, it would have never happened. Because when you're a full-time working mom with 3 toddlers, you just don't get that. Even if you're not, most people don't get that amount of uninterrupted time. And so I think it's all about just choosing to start. If you choose to start, then you're going to have a positive result. If you choose to stay in overwhelm, that's exactly where you'll stay. And all it is deciding, I'm going to choose to begin. And we can talk about strategies and things to begin, but I think what you're talking about is really applicable to any type of life change we want to make.
Yeah. It's just so connected with weight loss. I think we all went into that feeling of, what do you do when it all feels like it's so big. And I would love to hear, I know you've got some stories and you've got some ideas on how, becoming more of a minimalist or dealing with these pieces in our homes actually contributes to your physical health or weight loss
Yeah.
or, those goals. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that, because I know they've helped me.
Well, that's great. Well, I think when you start to deal with the physical things in your home and you're letting go of the things that don't serve you, it's actually just a metaphor for letting go of anything that doesn't serve you, which could be a habit, right? So let's say you have a habit of every night, you're eating ice cream before bed, or you have a habit of hitting the snooze for half an hour so you don't get up and go for a walk in the morning. So you start to see not just as physical stuff, right? Like this water bottle here, like, does this serve me? Does it help me? Is it useful or beautiful? Is it adding to the kind of life that I want? Yes or no. You can ask that about anything. Is this useful or beautiful to me? Does this serve me and the kind of life that I want? So that's the realm of looking at physical things. But that same question applies to your habits, right? Is this habit of eating ice cream every night before bed, is this useful or beautiful, meaningful to me? Does this serve me? Yes or no, right? You can answer that question, and then it's letting go if the answer is no, right? And we find a way to let go. So when it comes to physical things, it's a little easier, and also it can be harder, right? It's as easy as putting it in the donation bag or the trash and taking it to the charity or taking the trash out. When it comes to a habit or a thought pattern, which is what a lot of our health habits, where they start, it's a little harder sometimes to untangle that. We can't just put our habit in the trash. We have to change the habit within ourselves. And that just comes from that awareness, right? That awareness of, what kind of life do I really want to have? And if that's the life I have, does this habit fit into that life? And it's a letting go process, but you're letting go in your mind and in your heart, as opposed to just letting go and putting this in the trash. And even with letting go of physical things, there is still that emotional component to it as well. Because, let's say your water bottle was something that was given to you by a dear friend, and you don't use it and you don't love it, but it was a gift. And so you feel guilty if you let go of it. So there is quite a bit of processing of our emotions in the realm of physical things, but definitely when it comes to letting go of habits in our health that aren't serving us, I think there is a little bit more emotion that comes with that, because the eating of the ice cream before bed, that's not just a thing we can say, oh, well, I'm not going to do that anymore, and you're done. I mean, how many times have we said, well, I'm just going to stop eating sweets. I'm going to stop eating processed food. And it's done, right? Yep, done. Cross it off the list. Got rid of that. No, you're continually coming back to that, and you're building the muscle of intentionally choosing what's good for you. And with physical stuff, it's the same, right? I used to go to the store. I would go to Target and I would walk in and stroll. I don't know, in Canada, do you guys have the dollar spot in
Yep.
Target where you walk in?
We
Okay,
don't have a
so
Target
zip that.
anymore. It's funny. We tried Target. We had it for 2 years and it didn't last here. It was funny.
Oh, you don't have Target
Nope.
anymore. That's all right, because the dollar spot is the devil. It's really
Deadly.
not the devil, but it's very hard to resist. So you would walk in, I would walk in, and there's the dollar spot. I'd be like, oh, well, let me just cruise around and see, oh, I need this, I need that. And I would pick up $8 to $10 worth of stuff that I didn't intend to purchase, and I would just buy it. And I did that habit over and over in other areas of my life. Well, let me just pick up a few things. Oh, it's on clearance. Oh, it's buy one, get one. Well, I get free shipping if I order more, right? It's cheaper per thing to order 15 than to order 5. So I'm going to order 15, even though I don't need them. And so that's a habit, right? That's something that I was doing over and over again. And when I started to intentionally let go of the excess things, I started to let go of those habits at the same time. So I realized I'd started to create this really calm and relaxing and peaceful environment that was giving me so much more free time to do things that I wanted to do. And I wanted to protect that so much that I knew I had to change the habits that had led to the cluttered, claustrophobic feeling that I had been feeling in my house. So once I started to achieve that little bit of success, it was easier to let go of those habits. And it really was just becoming aware of, does this serve me? Does it serve me to walk into Target and purchase 8 to 10 things I didn't plan to purchase? No, it doesn't. It doesn't serve me financially, and it doesn't serve me physically in my home environment, because then I have to care for those things. I have to find a place to put them. I have to maintain them. I have to move them. I have to organize them. I have to label or whatever I have to do to keep them the way they are. And that doesn't serve me. I don't want to spend my life doing that. So I think when we become aware, we can become aware of not just the things in our life, but the habits that lead to them. And then we can let the habits go more easily, because we're starting to experience the success of the life that we want to live. And we're like, okay, like if you lost 5 pounds, or you start to feel stronger, you can lift a heavier weight than you could last week. To preserve that, you're like, yeah, I'm seeing the positive effects. I'm feeling good and I'm looking good and I'm getting stronger. Suddenly we see the habit of the ice cream before bed a little differently, don't we? And we think, oh, that habit's not serving this vision of what I really want in my life. And so with that awareness, we can let go of it. And it's the same process with physical things.
I love that, just because it also sounds so positive too. Like it's not like, oh, I can't have, or no, or it's actually, okay, what is this doing for me right now? Is this serving me? Is it not? And I don't have to be perfect with it yet. Like, like you said, maybe not every night with ice cream, but it's also not being like, oh, I'm never going to touch it again, knowing that that's going to be way too hard. But it's like,
Right.
yeah, I can make that decision in this moment.
Yeah.
It
And
doesn't
it's like,
mean, yeah.
simplicity is not about never purchasing items again or never consuming items again. I still shop. I still buy things. I have to. Humans are consumers. We must consume. But I'm so much more intentional about the things I consume now than I was 8 or 9 years ago. I think very carefully before I make a purchase, because I want to make sure that that purpose is serving me.
Mhm.
I shop with a list of things that I need to buy. I don't just walk into a store and let the store tell me what I should buy. That's how I would shop. I'd be like, well, I guess I need new clothes. And I'd walk in and I would just sort of wander around and buy stuff, right? Oh, there's the clearance rack. Let's get this or that. Or, oh, that looks cute. Oh, this is cute. And now when I go shopping for clothes, I have a list. I know exactly what I need to purchase. And it's as specific as, cream colored tunic top size medium. Like that's how specific it is. And that's all that I am looking for. And so it's going into a store or into any activity where I'm going to be consuming goods, and I'm intentionally consuming as opposed to just letting the stuff come at me, because it's going to, right? Stuff is going to come into your life whether you seek it out or not, especially if you have children. My kids are bringing things home from school. Your insurance agent is sending you a box of freebies or of whatever. So stuff is coming into your life. And so you have to get really intentional about your habits as things come in, or it's really easy to just go back to the way things were. Just like people are not going to stop bringing cupcakes to the office. Ice cream is not going to stop being sold when you decide you're not going to eat it every night. But once you have built up those good habits, it's so much easier to maintain them going forward.
Yeah, no, I love that connection, because I don't know, I kind of had like almost like a vision of, like you say, with the intentional shopping, but even, for some of our listeners around food, right? It's like, if you're just, and I'm guilty, I will own it, I'm guilty too of, oh, well, look, that's on sale and we use that every once in a while, so sure, I might as well grab 3. Or, oh, I've got teenage boys, they eat, right? Like, so it's like, well, while I'm here, let's just, and then I end up with a cupboard full of food that has no purpose, and I don't have the things to go with it. So then I'm buying more. And then the next thing I know, my freezer's full, this is full, the cupboards are exploding, and I actually have nothing concrete. And then I end up maybe not making the best food choices, seeing as we're kind of on that topic, because I feel like I have to use everything that I bought, and then I get stressed about it. Whereas like listening to you talk with the list and kind of like, okay, it's okay to let go. And even if you're attached and you spent money on it, if it's not serving me, I can actually choose myself and just say it's okay. And it actually feels so positive. And so, like you're valuing yourself in that.
Yeah, it is. And there's so many parallels between purchasing food that way. And I often do use buying clothes because it's something that we all buy. But, a lot of people, we have the closet full of nothing to wear, right? We've got a whole closet full of clothes, but when we go to get dressed, we're trying on, I have nothing to wear, right? My closet is stuffed. Well, how does that happen? It happens because we've done unintentional purchases. We bought it because our friend said it looked nice, or we bought it because it was on sale, or we were having a bad day at work, and so we just took ourselves shopping. We just bought whatever felt good in the moment. And that's a very different way of consuming clothing than thinking, okay, for winter, here's the type of clothing I like to wear. Here's what I feel beautiful in. Here are the types of things. Here's how often I do laundry. Thus, this is about the amount of stuff that I need to get to laundry day. And you really intentionally create a wardrobe that is beautiful and wonderful and high quality and you love. And guess what? It's a lot smaller than the amount of stuff you have in the closet, but everything works together. Those leggings match that top, match that dress, match that jacket, match that scarf. Like everything goes together and you look great and everything works, but it's a lot less. It's the same with the food, right? You can make a kind of intentional plan. Okay, here's the stage of life I'm in. I've got teenage boys. We need a lot of this and a lot of that. This is what's going on this week. So these are the kinds of meals we can make. And then you intentionally create a meal plan and you create an intentional shopping list based on your meal plan that's based on the life you live. And then the things in your cupboards actually serve you as opposed to being a source of stress for you. So it's that same concept of getting clear about the life that you have and the life that you want, and spending that time to intentionally create that, right, with the things that you bring in, as opposed to just, all right, let me go to Costco and just buy whatever's there because, we need some food, but I don't know what food we need. So you end up with like a cupboard full of nothing to eat, which is the same as a closet full of nothing to wear. And the key to both of them is creating an intentional plan of some kind that serves the life that you're living now. Because the cupboard that you need with teenage boys is different than the cupboard that a retired couple may need or a family with young kids might need. It's very specific to your family. So I just love that we can draw all of these parallels, but they kind of come back to that same thing. I feel like I've used the word intention probably 25 times in this interview, but intentionally thinking about the types of things that we want, the types of things that serve us in our life.
Well, I mean, I just love the way you say that though, because even when you were talking about the clothes, about things that feel good, because I mean, I'm guilty too. Like, how many times have you bought jeans or something because they were on clearance and then they sit in the closet? And then you
Yeah.
don't, like, I'm guilty. You don't want to spend a lot of money on something when you can get it cheap, but then you spend a little bit more and love it. And then you end up spending less overall, but you feel good about yourself too. And I think, with food, it's sort of the similar. Like I was saying with my boys, they open the fridge and it's like exploding. It's, Mom, we have no food. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
But I love what you say, because even just hearing you describe it of, when you make that intentional meal plan and you make, the intentional purchasing, it's like, even just hearing you talk, it's like, oh yeah, then we know what's there and we know what's happening. And it just, for me, it brings the stress level down.
Yeah, one of the first things that I purchased after going on my minimalism journey, I needed a pair of brown boots. I wanted the knee-high brown leather boots. And in my mind, I had a picture of what they would look like. And what I would have done before is I would have just gone to like Payless Shoes or someplace really cheap. And I would have bought like a pair that was okay. And then maybe like, oh, it's buy two, get one free. So I would have bought some extras. And then I would have ended up with 3 pairs of cheap boots that were okay. That was sort of how I did it. But I said, no, I'm going to I know exactly what I want. I'm going to buy a really nice pair of boots. It's going to go with all sorts of outfits. And so I took probably 3 months to find the perfect pair. I tried on tons of pairs of boots, and eventually I found the perfect pair, and I spent over $150 on those boots, which at the time for me was a lot of money. I'd never spent that much on shoes in my whole life. But I wore that pair of boots for like 7 years regularly. I even tried to get them when the toes started to wear out. I took them somewhere. I said, can you match the color of this leather? And they're like, you really just need to buy new boots. Like, you have used these. So, I mean, the amount of value that I got from spending more really was me spending a lot less, right? That $150 spread out over the 7 years that I wore those is almost nothing, considering I would have purchased probably every year 2 or 3 more pairs of cheapy boots that wouldn't have looked good. They would have cluttered up my closet. It also isn't great for me financially to keep buying more. And I wouldn't have felt as good. Like when I wore those boots, I felt good every single time. And so I think it just goes back to what we've been saying, which is when you adopt a lifestyle where you're really going to value something, it's kind of like if you're going to buy better food, right? The cheapest food in the grocery store is the junk food. But if you spend a little more, you get something that's better quality. It's going to keep you full longer. It's going to keep you living longer. It adds so much more value to your life when you invest in yourself by purchasing really quality food. And it's the same thing when you surround yourself with quality items in your life. And I'm not saying that we need to buy Gucci and Chanel and everything really expensive, but when you purchase just what truly serves you, you're going to purchase a lot less and you're going to purchase better. And that has so many far reaching benefits for you, just in terms of your stress level in your home, your finances. It's better environmentally, so much better. We haven't even talked about the environment, but so much better when we're not buying lots of little trinkety stuff. We're buying higher quality items. I mean, there's just so many far reaching benefits when we actually seek out quality things for our lives as opposed to the easy to get or the easy to eat, cheap, junky stuff, right? Junky food or kind of junky stuff.
Well, that's, yeah. Sorry, you just said that so beautifully. I was like, wow, yeah. But you're right. It's just, yeah, like we really need to, our choices that not only serve us, serve the environment around us, kind of, it's like that ripple effect, right? We start taking care of us and we actually are taking care of those around us and the environment. And, it just kind of goes out, and it's kind of neat, actually. I kind of like that. I like that. If there was like a tip, I'm sure you get that. Where do I start? What do I do? What do I, I know you've had, just by some of the stories I've heard from you on some of your website and such, but I know you've had clients that have started the process and lost weight or start, unintentionally because life had kind of happened. But what would you say to somebody that's like, okay, I'm overweight, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with this, everything's a mess, there's clutter everywhere. What do I even do? Because I'm sure you get those questions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have had quite a few clients who I will see them, and then, maybe a few months later I see them again and they've lost 15 or 20 pounds.
Oh,
And
wow.
we weren't talking about food while I was there. We weren't talking about exercise. We weren't talking about diet. But there's a few things that happen when you start to let go. So if you're asking about where to start, so I'll answer that question first.
Mhm.
I always give people two pieces of advice on where to start because, like we said, it can feel really overwhelming. First thing is start with your own stuff.
Mm.
So especially if you're living with other people, you don't want to try to start with your kids' stuff or your partner's stuff because they're going to probably give you some pushback, right? You don't change yourself by changing other people. You change yourself by changing yourself. So start with your own things. I always say, Gandhi told us, be the change you wish to see in the world. I will say, be the change you wish to see in your house. So start with your own things. Maybe those are your personal care products, your towels, your clothing. If the kitchen is your domain, you can start with the kitchen, but don't start with other people's things. So start with your own stuff, rule number one. Rule number two is start somewhere easy. And by that, I mean, often when we're dealing with our stuff, we're not actually dealing with our stuff. What we're dealing with are our feelings and emotions about our stuff. So like the water bottle, right? Let's say I've got some emotional story that goes along with this water bottle. I can't just say, oh, well, I don't use it anymore. Let me put it in the trash. If this is something that I've got an emotional connection to, I have to deal with those feelings before I can deal with the physical thing. So when I say start somewhere easy, I mean start somewhere where the emotional connection is not very high. So
Ah,
usually people often think about, oh, all the memorabilia, all the pictures, the stuff grandma gave me, the things I inherited from my aunt who passed away. Those things are emotional minefields, guys. Don't start there. Start where the emotions are low. So if any of the people watching have seen my TEDx talk, or if you look it up, the title of my TEDx talk is How Many Towels Do You Need? When I started my journey, the very first thing I dealt with were my towels. And I didn't realize it at the time, but in retrospect, I know that I started there because I don't have a lot of emotional connection to my towels. I don't have fond memories of every time I've dried my hands with them, right? It was easy because, first of all, it was something that I could control, but it was easy because there wasn't an emotional bond. So I could just deal with the physical thing and not have to deal with the emotions attached to the thing. Well, as I went through my journey, eventually I worked my way up to the boxes of photographs and the memorabilia from my honeymoon and the memorabilia from my kids and all that stuff. And I dealt with it, but I dealt with that near the end of my journey as opposed to the beginning. So start with your own stuff, rule number one. Rule number two, start somewhere easy, wherever that is for you. I often tell people, typically things in the bathroom are a little easier and less emotional. So makeup products, beauty products, towels, linens, generally those are good places to begin. And then you can work your muscles up. You're minimizing, simplifying muscles up until you can deal with harder things like photographs, memorabilia, paper, and that kind of stuff. So those would be my suggestions for getting started. And then there is a link as you begin to shed physical excess items. What happens, a couple things. First of all, you open up mental space.
mm,
So what you may not realize is that your brain is trying desperately to process all the physical stuff all the time. Like, okay, there's all of my spices and all my shoes, and then open my closet. The reason you feel overwhelmed is because your brain literally did not evolve to process a closet with 200 items in it. We have the brain of our cave people ancestors, right? They saw maybe, they owned maybe, I don't know, 50 items their whole life, maybe. I don't even think they probably had that much stuff. So your brain can't really fathom or process all that stuff, and that's why you feel overwhelmed. So when you start to decrease the amount of stuff, you actually give your brain a break, right? And your brain starts to be like, oh, thank you, right? Whew. You start to feel relaxed. I'm not looking around trying to see all the paper and all the stuff in the living room and all the shoes and all the coats and all the electronics. You can relax. And when you do that, you have brain space, you start to think about other things that might be beneficial to you. So maybe for you, that would be, okay, I have now some of the mental capacity to think about what would be a good first step for weight loss. I'm not so overwhelmed with dealing with my paper and my shoes and my dishes and my laundry as much as I was anymore. Maybe now I have the space to really think about making a meal plan, and maybe actually going to the grocery store with a list, which I've never done before. But now your brain, because it's going to require your brain to work a little bit to think about that. And if your brain is so used to just thinking about putting out fires with all the physical things it's trying to deal with, your brain has not had the relaxed state that it needs to come up with a plan to make your physical health life better. So you're going to have that happen in your brain. You're also going to have more time, right? We all say, oh, if only I had the time, right? If I had the time to pack a lunch, if I had the time to exercise, if I had the time to lift weights, if I had the time to go to yoga. Well, guess what you'll have when you're not dealing with your stuff as much? Time. You're going to have more time. And so you can use some of that time to walk your dog more, to go on a bike ride with your kids, to go to the Y and go for a swim, or whatever you want to do. You actually have more time to care for yourself when you're not caring for your stuff as much, which is what I found in my own personal life. I was spending an hour to 2 hours every night dealing with my stuff. When I no longer had to do that, right, because I dealt with it all, I didn't have to deal with it as much. Like, you still have to pick stuff up and put it away. You still have to run the dishwasher and do some laundry. You still have to, but it's not the amount that I was doing before. When you have that extra time, you can take care of yourself. So one of the things I did to take care of myself was I would sit on my couch with a mug of tea and a book, and I would read at night for an hour. And for me, oh my gosh, that was absolutely the best thing I could do for myself. It calmed me down. It gave me something that I could do for me at the end of the day. I woke up the next morning with more energy. So if I wanted to go for a workout in the morning, I had the energy to do it because I'd been able to fuel. So you're going to get more mental capacity and you're going to get more time. And with those two things, there's nothing you can't do. You want to run a triathlon, do it, because you have mental capacity and you have time that you didn't have before. So that's how I see those two things related, how physical decluttering can lead to health. And there are plenty of studies out there. I just did a blog post a few weeks ago on 3 ways decluttering helps you lose weight. And one of the statistics that I cite was a study, the Boston Globe published a study that said people who self-reported, if they self-reported that they struggled with clutter, they were 77% more likely to be overweight or obese. Wow. So there's clearly a correlation. If we feel like we are struggling with clutter, with excess physical items, we are very likely to be struggling with excess weight as well. So if you start letting go of that physical stuff, you can start letting go of the other, the physical weight, the excess weight. So I think the two are very, very much linked. And I know even in my own life, I have been blessed. I've not been someone who struggles with weight per se, but I haven't always had the healthiest habits. And one thing that's been interesting as my simplicity journey has happened, you know, I started with my physical stuff and I decluttered that. Then I really went to my finances and I got control of my finances and decluttered a lot of the excess financially. And I decluttered my career in a way. So I left a career that wasn't really working for me and I started my own career doing this business. And then I started tackling my health. And so I've actually cut out, in the last year, I've cut out alcohol. I stopped drinking. I cut out all processed meat products. I tried to cut out sugar, but honestly, it didn't really work for me. I had to bring the sugar back. I think the coronavirus brought the sugar back for me, but it's a lot less than I used to eat. But, and just today, so this is funny that we're talking about this today, I went to my doctor for an annual checkup and my cholesterol is 20 points lower than it was 2 years ago. And I'm like, I know that that's a result of me letting go of habits that didn't serve me. Like alcohol didn't really serve me. Processed meat did not serve me. Excess sugar did not serve me. I also let go of exercise that felt punishing to me, like boot camp style exercise that I was doing, like really hard burpees and stuff. I started doing yoga and more gentle things. And I mean, I can't believe it when I have high cholesterol in my family. It's a genetic thing. For the first time in my adult life, my cholesterol is actually within the normal range. Like it's under 200. It's never been under 200 since I've been an adult. I'm 39. So my cholesterol is lower now than it was when I was 25. And so it's that same process, right? I had the mental capacity, like, okay, I'm going to start dealing with some of these health habits that I have had. And as I started to let them go, right, I'm reaping the benefits in what will be my longevity. So I just think if you can start one good habit, right, you can start one good habit of letting go, it's going to lead to letting go of other habits that don't serve you and adopting habits that do.
No, I mean, I love that you said that, because I think sometimes we feel like we have to do it all and figure it all out at once. But like you said, you kind of started with, your towels, and then that led to the next step, and that led to the next step. And then things sort of naturally kind of started happening almost organically, it sounds like. And then you got to choose, like, does this serve me? Does this make me happy? Like, what works for you may not work for me, and that's okay. But we get to actually kind of, like you say, flex that muscle and try it. And if it doesn't work, oh well, we tried something, it didn't work, we've just learned something. And it feels positive. And it's like, nobody's saying you have to go change everything today. It's just, pick a little piece, and then what's that next comfortable step for you? Don't go after the really hard stuff. Get in that process and get in that rhythm and get in that, and then add a little piece, and then tackle the next little piece. And it sounds like for you, that next step almost kind of presented itself
And
as
that's,
you're ready to face it.
yeah, that's how the journey has very much been for me. Even when I went through my house, I didn't have a plan. I
Mm.
didn't have like, I'm going to do this, then this, then this. I just started, and I kind of just like let the spirit lead me, or whatever you want to call it. And I just sort of knew where to go next. And then when I was sort of done with the house, I was like, okay, I'm done. And then a few years later, it was like, okay, well, actually not a whole few years. It was probably a year later. It was like, okay, the next thing that had to go was the career. And that was a process of letting go. And then it was like, okay, now the finances. Okay, now, and the digital things, I didn't even talk about that, but the digital things, I had to let go of some of my bad digital habits. And then the health. And I sort of just feel like these things just keep happening. And every time it happens, I'm like, okay, now I'm letting go of this. I'm decluttering this. And where I'm at right now in my journey is the state of where I'm decluttering. I call it like decluttering your mind, right? Decluttering the resentments and the anger and the things that we've held on to, the shame and the things that we have since we were little kids. It's all still in there, right? It's like a cluttered closet of negative feelings, and you got to dig it out, right? You got to dig it out and find it and let it go. And it's that same process. I'm like, this is the same process as letting go of the towels, just on a different playing field. It's really fascinating to me that I continually do this, but I'm enacting it on different spheres of my life.
That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that personally, because I know it's hard, but I think it's right. It's so true. It's like there's all those little layers, and it's more about peeling it off and revealing. And then the next step will reveal itself as you are willing to peel off those pieces. And I mean, for some of my listeners and clients that I'm thinking of, it's just, yeah, it's like we've put those barriers, whether it's weight, whether it's stuff, whether it's whatever, almost as a way to avoid being willing to go in. But
Yeah.
the answer is actually, if you're willing to let go, letting go actually brings you more. Like you say, with the mental capacity, letting go gives you. So it's the process of letting go to be able to allow more of whatever it is that we're looking for.
Yeah, I was just really struck by some things I've been reading lately about forgiveness, and really forgiveness is letting go. And any, therapist or psychology professional will say forgiveness, you do it for yourself, right? You forgive, forgiving is letting go. And that's why they say forgiveness is the most powerful thing you can do. I'm like, it's letting go. It's decluttering that feeling, decluttering that anger and resentment. It's letting it go. That's why people feel free after they forgive someone. And it's just, I'm like, man, it just keeps coming back. Like, letting go is the key. Like, it is the key to the freedom in your life. You have to be open and willing to let go of whatever it is that's next. And I loved how you said it was an organic thing, because if you trust yourself, the thing is, anybody watching this, what you need to let go of, and you really know where you need to start. You can find somebody's plan and you can follow it, and that's great. But if you learn to trust yourself, you realize like you know what you need to let go of, and you know when you're ready to let go of it as well. I think that's an important thing to mention, because when I first started out doing this, I wouldn't have been ready to
Mm.
let go of a lot of the things I've let go of now. I think of my teaching supplies in my attic. I always say it took me 5 years and 1 hour to let go of my teaching supplies. So when I left my teaching job, I couldn't let go of my identity of myself as a teacher, or the security that I felt having those things. Like, well, if I ever needed to go back to teaching, I've got my stuff, right? I can go back to teaching. So I held on to those boxes of things until it got to the point where I realized I had to let go of them, because what they represented to me was a fear that I wouldn't be successful in my business. So I had to have them in case my business failed. So I had something to fall back on. So it was a physical representation of my fear and distrust of myself. And I realized if I ever want to have the business I want to have, I have to let go of these things. I will not have the business I want to have if I hold on to them. I must let them go. And so I worked myself up to being able to let go of them. I actually planned a date on the calendar. And one Sunday morning, I got up and it took me about an hour to just throw it all away. But it
Wow.
took me 5 years to get the guts to let it go. So you'll know when you're ready. It will become so apparent that you will not be able to ignore it anymore. And you can't really rush that time. You can start getting yourself more open to it, but when the time is right for you to let go of the things you need to let go of, you'll absolutely know. So don't worry about the things that you feel you can't let go of right now. You're not ready to let go of them. And when you're ready, you'll be ready, and you won't be ready a moment before.
I love that. I love that. Almost gives us permission to do things at our pace, in our, what, like you say, what feels right. We know if we can let go of the should or have to's or pressure from outside, you're right, we do know. And we do it on our time as we're ready. And then it's going to obviously mean a whole lot more too.
Yeah.
No, I love that. There's so many ways this could go. This could be a whole other interview.
Yeah, we could be here for 4 more hours. How much time do you have?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. If anybody wants, I mean, we'll definitely have your biography and your links to you on our site once this goes live in August. But if people do want to work with you, how do you usually suggest they get a hold of you or learn more, or find out more about you?
Yeah, so the best place to find me is at my website, and it's roselounsbury.com. That's ROSELOUNSBURY.com. And from there, you can find links to all my social media. You can read my blog. You can sign up to get emails from me. That would be helpful. If you are a social media person, I am on Instagram at Rose Lounsbury. I also have a very active Facebook group called
Yes, you do.
Minimalism is Fun, which I think you are a member of,
I
Jen.
love it.
Yeah, it really is fun. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the thing. Like, the group really is fun. It's called Minimalism is Fun, and it truly is fun. So you can join it's a private group, but you can join our private Facebook group for free, and you can get involved with me there. I'm also on LinkedIn, if that's your favorite place to hang out as well. So those would be some places that we could connect.
that's awesome. I appreciate that. I'll make sure it's all listed as well, but just I like to ask. But yes, your Facebook group is awesome. I've had a couple days where I'm like, I know I need to do this. And I look, I'm like, okay, let's go. Because someone else is like, I'm doing it. And it
Yes,
is,
it's
you're right.
all
It's a blast.
inspiring. Yeah, it's like just a great group of people, and people are just really inspiring each other. I also have, I'll mention, if you're looking for a guide to help you get started, I have a simplicity starter guide that you can download for free on my website. And if you go to roselounsbury.com/start here, you can find that, and you can get that. It's a little PDF that'll take you through your house the way that I would if I was there with you. And it'll show you how to get started. It'll help you create a customized checklist for yourself with the areas that you should start with, and kind of move you down so you have an actual plan when you're done. So that's really helpful for a lot of people who do appreciate having a checklist or a plan to get started. That's a resource I would really recommend.
Awesome. Well, what we'll do then is we'll make sure that gets put directly, the link to that specifically, so that anybody that's looking can just go grab it without having to look too much. We'll make sure that's included as well. Then it's there.
Great.
So I so appreciate your time, but I'm going to put you on the spot before
Okay.
we leave, just because I love to do this with everybody. And sometimes it works better when you don't have notice.
Yeah, I'm good.
But going back to who you were right before that moment with the towels, because I know that's where you said you started with
Yeah.
that chaotic feeling and that, oh my gosh, do we buy another house? Do we this? If you could go back today and tell that the Rose then something, what would you want to say to her now?
I would just tell her to trust herself and that everything that you feel led to do, you can do. And just believe in yourself that you can do it because you have no idea the amazing things that are headed your way. So trust yourself. That's what I would tell her.
I love that. I love that. Just applies to all aspects of life too.
Yeah. I think that the advice we would give our younger self is always the advice our older self is giving us. So future Rose is telling current Rose, trust yourself as well.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time. We'll make sure we have all this information out for our listeners. Again, I could write a whole page just from what I heard today. I was like, oh, I want to write that. I want to write that. Oh no, focus. So I really, really appreciate it. I get something every time I listen to something you've said, which is amazing. And I love, like you said, I love the way that so much of what we do is connected, and that key to letting go, I think, is just crucial in all aspects of life. So
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jen. It's been a pleasure to be here. And I hope that these words help people out there who are looking for some relief from their excess stuff, excess weight, and gives them some of those positive steps they can take to start creating the life that they really want.
thank you so much. I'm sure we'll catch up at some point, and I know this is going to be very valuable to those that tune into it. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.